Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. The interpretation of our dreams can only be an objective view of our subjective experiences. The behavior of a human being in sexual matters is often a prototype for the whole of his other modes of reaction in life. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The ego is not master in its own house. The mind is never satisfied with the objects immediately before it, but is always breaking away from the present moment and losing itself in the future. Neurosis is the result of a conflict between the ego and its id. It is a great injustice to persecute homosexuality as a crime, and a cruelty too. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the effect of anxiety. Anatomy is destiny. The madman is a dreamer awake. Where id was, their ego shall be. Men are more moral than they think, and far more immoral than they can imagine. One is very crazy when in love. The conscious mind may be compared to a fountain playing in the sun and falling back into the great subterranean pool of subconscious from which it rises. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. The first human being who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. The mind is never satisfied with the objects immediately before it, but is always breaking away from the present moment and losing itself in the future, which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt, neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. One feels inclined to say that the intention that man should be happy is not included in the plan of creation. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. The ego is not sharply separated from the outside world. It extends porously into it. The great question, which I have not been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? The mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Where id was, their ego shall be.